Good morning. Welcome to the Silent City, right here outside of Columbia. I'm glad you all came to visit me this morning. My name is Sara Sallie Rey Marcum, and I am the fifth daughter of Marshall and Martha E. McKinley Marcum. Now, unfortunately, only 3 of us girls survived. 2 of our baby sisters didn't make it past a year. My sisters and I grew up here in Columbia. My father was county court clerk for several years here, and he also owned and operated the Marcum Hotel. Now, it was the Conover Hotel before my father took over, and you all may know this hotel by a different name now. It was the Miller Hotel, and in 1977 there was a tragic hotel fire which took that structure out. If you want to know where that is actually where your annex building is sitting right now. We grew up here in Columbia and had a great life. We lived near the Presbyterian Church on Burkesville Street. My sisters and I spent a lot of time at the hotel with my mother and father. And that's where my little travel bug got planted. I used to sit and listen to all the people that would come through from Nashville and Knoxville and Louisville, even St. Louis. They would travel here and stay a night or two, and we would listen to their stories about their travels and what they had seen. And that little bug got planted kind of deep inside me. Now, my sisters and I were very involved in the community. We participated in the county fair every year. My mother was adamant that we learned how to stitch and embroidery, and we would have things in the floral hall exhibits every year. And we won several blue ribbons. My mother was quite proud of that. We also were into carriage driving, and we drove carriages in the county fair in competition. And my sister Nina and I also won several ribbons in that competition. My father was quite proud of that. And we loved horses. We grew up around them and had several. I was educated here in Columbia in public school. I actually went on to Transylvania University and received my degree, and actually took a few classes from UT at Knoxville. Now, in 1904, my sister and I decided that we were going to travel. Remember I told you I had a little travel bug planted? Well, that little travel bug started growing. We decided we were going to go to St. Louis, Missouri and see the World's Fair. So we hopped on a train and we went to St. Louis, Missouri, and we had the best time ever. All the exhibits from all over the U.S. and the world. Oh my goodness, it was such an exciting experience for us, and we got to see so many things, and it was just amazing. Of course, at that time there were train tracks running all over the place. You could just hop a train and go everywhere, and we did. We went to Louisville, and we went to Campbellsville, and we went to Nashville, several places that we traveled. I also taught music at Lindsey Wilson Training School for a few years. I was involved in my church very heavily, was actually a state delegate to the Christian Church Convention, and was secretary of the Adair County Sunday School Convention for several years. We were very involved in church, and we just loved our church and the church people, and did quite a bit of work in the community through the church. I also worked for the Columbia Spectator as an editor and writer, and some of my writings you might be able to see at the Genealogy Center. I actually applied for a job in the early 1930s with Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Now, that was a far piece from here, but I just felt like it was time for me to move on and start a career. So I did. I actually applied and became executive secretary for Dr. David Bancroft Wilson. He was known all over the South as one of the premier educators in this area. Now, one of the things that he was very adamant about was that his staff and his students and his faculty should travel. Not just in the U.S., but he thought we all should travel overseas. Now my little travel bug just kept getting bigger and bigger, especially after I listened to all his stories about being overseas and what he had seen. So I saved my money. I was single, no children, so I was able to save quite a bit of money. And I kind of coerced my sister Nina into going with me over the pond, as we called it back then. We boarded a ship called the Augustus in 1931, the summer of 1931. Now let me tell you a little bit about this ship. At that time, that was the fastest traveling ship in the world. It could travel 19 knots per hour, which is just 21 miles per hour. But it would take 7 to 10 days to travel from South Carolina across the pond to Europe. My sister and I had the best time. We went to Italy and we went to France, and we just toured all over the place, went to every museum and art museum we could find, ate everything that we could eat. It was just awesome. And well, that's where my travel bug just got bigger and bigger. Almost every summer, if I didn't come back home to Columbia, I would travel across the sea and travel all over the European countries. In fact, I took several teachers and students with me and was their tour guide for several years during those little trips. I enjoyed it so much, and I really do believe that travel is the way to go, because there's no better education than traveling somewhere. I worked there at Winthrop College for quite a few years, traveling and being secretary for Dr. David. And then I got an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. to work for the U.S. government. I can't really tell you what I did, but several Adair County people actually went to Washington, D.C. and worked. But I stayed there for several years working, and oh my goodness, I walked all over Washington, D.C. Every museum, every art exhibit. It was just the best time of my life. I had the biggest time there. And of course, all of the historical documents that I could see just made history come alive to me. And all those things that my teachers had taught me here in Adair County, I actually got to see firsthand in D.C. And I just loved that. That was a huge blessing to me. Well, late 1953, I believe it was, I started feeling kind of poorly. Didn't really know what was wrong, but I just didn't feel right. So I went to several doctors, and after going to one particular doctor, he gave me the diagnosis that I did not want to hear. He told me that I had breast cancer. Now, there's a lot of different things that are going on now in this world that can help you all with breast cancer, and treatments and things that just make everything a little better and a little easier. And there are actually cures for certain types of cancer now, and I think that's just wonderful. But back in 1953, that wasn't the case. So my doctor told me, he said, you need to just get prepared. You probably need to go home where someone can take care of you, because it's going to be a pretty rough ride. So I packed up my trusty suitcase that had been with me for ever so many years on ever so many trips, and I went back home to my sister Nina, to her apartment in Louisville. She was living in Louisville at that time, near some bigger hospitals and doctors, and there is where I stayed until I passed away on July the 16th, 1954. I had a great life. I cannot tell you all the things that I was able to see and experience. I mean, a little old country girl from Columbia, Kentucky, going to all these places and working in all these places and being able to work in Washington, D.C. I mean, talk about a blessing. That was a blessing. I just want to encourage you all to know your history, come out here and visit with some of these good people and learn their stories. And remember, we have this wonderful new building here right next to the library, Genealogy and Research Center. Why, you can go in there and research anything and find out just about any story you want to find out about these people. So I encourage you all to do that. And if you can travel, put that little travel bug inside you and let him grow. because it's awesome. Thank you all so much for coming out this morning. I hope you have a wonderful day.